is the weekly show in which we steal time from So Damn Local and ask the question, what would it be like if there was a daily show for Europe? Or maybe even Bill Maher. We're trying. And now, here's your host, me, Greg Shapiro. Right. Welcome, everybody. I got a little sign for us this week. Hi. Welcome to the United States of Shapiro. And, this week, as always, we're giving the EU the respect they deserve by making fun of them just like anybody else. We have a special guest today as well, but before we do that, let's say hi to the man in the booth, Jeremy Forrester. How you doing? Thank you for the wonderful camera work, and are we ready to go with the images? It's always nice to get started. There we go. Well, last week, Brussels hosted a summit entitled This Time It's Different, taking into account the results of the Europe-wide elections for European Parliament before appointing a new EU president. The summit was attended by the EU heads of state who appointed the last European Commission president. In other words, this time, it's pretty much the same. And last week, the EU also hosted an economic summit to discuss the very real issues of income disparity and upward mobility. Yes, Mario Draghi there with Eurogroup Chairman Jeroen Dijsselbloem. The EU also invited experts from the United States to remind themselves that when it comes to income disparity and upward mobility, it may be bad in Europe, but at least it's not as bad as the United States. Following the European-wide voting, the EU Parliament is getting ready for welcoming new members, including the one who wants to disband the European Parliament, the one who wants to leave Europe, and the one who wants to turn the European Parliament building into a brothel. Experts don't think it's likely that there will be changing the European Parliament into a brothel, but they do agree it's never been closer to becoming an insane asylum. Already, Denmark, Poland, and Greece are facing criticism for delivering parliament seats to far-right parties who believe that immigrants should be illegal, that Hitler didn't know about the Holocaust, and that perhaps they should use chemical weapons against incoming immigrants. Denmark, Poland, and Greece responded to Europe simply by saying, thank you for taking these guys off of our hands. Good luck to them in Brussels. Meanwhile, pro-Europe members of the European Parliament reassured the nervous centrists, please don't panic. They're just new members of the European Parliament. Their crazy dreams will be crushed just like ours were. In America, in the wake of the latest American school shooting, a wave of protest postcards have been sent with the slogan, "Something must be done." The state of Oklahoma has responded by granting a liquor license to a gun range. According to Oklahoma, gun deaths will be less traumatic if they're spread out over every weekend. And Europe was watching closely as President Obama unveiled an ambitious new carbon plan through the EPA to curb emissions of carbon CO2. The president admitted that a plan to limit carbon may indeed be costly, but the alternative is to remain dependent upon oil from the Middle East. In essence, it's better to have a carbon plan than a car bomb plan. Coming up, our guest is Jonathan Groubert, an American who's been in Europe longer than I have. But before that, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
That's good, car bomb plan. Carbon.
Then we're back. Hi, as promised, I have a guest in the studio. Hey, before that, Jeremy, I'm going to go back to my previous angle, and then I'll talk about Jonathan for a moment. But I wanted to mention that, you know, these conspiracy theorists everywhere have recently unearthed evidence that the EU has been holding secret meetings to try to figure out who will hold power. These secret meetings were held all over Europe with politicians and people from the media discussing policy measures and issues, and they didn't even tell anyone. Of course, we're talking about the European debates with, yes, these guys. They were not very well advertised, but it is true. There were debates with these. This time it is different because these guys were indeed trying to, come up with this slogan. This time it's different. That's the theme of the year because indeed there is a new process to replace this guy, the outgoing Portuguese head of the European Commission, president of the European Commission, José Manuel Barroso. Who will replace him? Well, this time it will be determined by the European Parliament. Here's the old fisheye lens views. That's a lot. They're getting 751 seats in there. And for the first time, the candidates for replacing Barroso will come from this legislative body. Here you can see how it breaks down. And yeah, again, it doesn't necessarily matter what parties you may have seen in your European country. This is how the coalitions break down within those 751 seats. There's a big red area and there's a big blue area, and those are the two main contenders. There's also a yellow area to notice right in the middle. That's kind of could be the kingmaker right now. Of course, we're talking about lots of candidates representing all of those different coalitions, but there are three main ones. And here they are at the debates. We've got over here Juncker, who is from the basically the right. From the left, we've got the current president of the European Parliament, Martin Schulz, who's representing Socialists and Democrats. And then in the middle, the yellow guy in the previous slide, that's Guy Verhofstadt, who is, the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats. So one of those three guys will be most likely to become the new European Commission presidents, but as we discussed last week, they're all gonna sit down and behind closed doors and basically figure out that it's probably gonna be, ta-da, Juncker. Right, that's my prognostication. Let's go now to our guest, and I'll throw it over to Jonathan Groubert. Thank you for joining us. Jonathan is, of course, the an American who's been in Europe longer than me. I'm speeding along, pardon me, but he's,
I came in 91.
91.
When did you come?
94, yeah.
Yeah.
But you may know his voice as the other half of What's Up Amsterdam podcast, and of course, the host of the fabulous radio show syndicated in public radio.
It's the state we're in.
The state we're in. And I'm going to call it Once in Future Glory. Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly.
That's really sweet.
It's brilliant. But anyway, no, we were talking about how much Europe has changed in the times since we've been here.
You know, what's amazing to me was when I first got here in the 90s, this whole European experiment was really in full bloom and people were enthusiastic. There was a newspaper called The European.
Really?
They were negotiating the Maastricht Treaty.
Yeah.
They were expanding
92.
European power all over the place.
Yeah.
People were talking about Europe becoming like the United States of Europe. And there was some pushback, but not that much. People were excited about the idea. And the Netherlands was one of the most enthusiastic participants in the entire operation.
1992, the Treaty of Maastricht, which laid the blueprint for a lot of the structures that we see. I mean,
that's right.
I can imagine Maastricht is in the Netherlands. They were happy. They were proud to be. Yeah.
And now, since 9/11, and 9/11 is this huge turning point for so many things.
Yeah.
You could really point your finger there. You know, we've starting to see the European Union coming apart a little bit.
Yeah.
People saying that there's overreach, that there's undemocratic, basically every bad thing that you could think about the European Union.
Yeah.
People are now taking a moment to blame it. Even parties on the left are starting to beat the European Union around a little bit. And you can see that this thing is fraying around the edges. So when we talked about this last election and the far right winning, this was an expression of, let's be honest, these things make it into like dissatisfaction about the European Union. This is about this dissatisfaction generally, what's happening locally, but all local politics is, right?
Yeah,
international politics is local. It's always local in the end.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, but now you mentioned, the far right winning. And yet, that's what I've been noticing. Like the Prime Minister of France has said that, it's an earthquake and we need to respond. And already we're seeing in terms of local or domestic politics, you've got Cameron who's, let's crack down on some immigrants. Or France is also, I guess we have to change our policies.
They got to co-opt the right. Otherwise they'll lose to the right.
Let's not forget two things. First of all, it was a record low turnout. It was not necessarily a landslide earthquake mandate. It was like a pretty small amount, and it was not just far right parties. There were also some far left parties.
The percentages were in the teens.
Yeah.
In the majority of countries that voted in the European Union.
Right. The Netherlands held out around 35%.
That's right. So this was
voters.
What is the big news about this? Is that it didn't go down further than it had gone down in the past.
That was indeed. This time it's different.
It's a triumph.
Yeah.
So basically, this was an earthquake to the right on the part of people who bothered to vote.
Yeah, there you go. But now, okay, you mentioned the far-right parties. I teased them already a little bit, but this uncomfortable factor of some of these far-right politicians who will be entering the European Parliament. I mean, one of whom from Germany, who describes himself as a neo-fascist.
Right.
The Polish guy who wants to turn. Who said that Hitler did not know about the Holocaust? I mean, you mentioned this as well the other day too.
But the Golden Dawn guys in Greece.
The Golden Dawn, yeah.
Don't forget those guys.
Disturbing.
Don't forget the Hungarian. Really, those guys, the Hungarian party that won. Those guys are extreme far right.
Yeah. Oh, this is the other guy I was talking about.
He's very handsome.
Yeah, I'll put this on a link later. But this is a Czech Republic, a Czech guy, Adam Bartos, and very natty-looking fellow.
Don't you like his bow tie?
But
his
he
little glasses?
He's keeping a regular tally of Jews in power, and he came up with like a political ad of a snake crawling out behind the EU flag, and it's not cool.
So I mean, this is not unexpected because we're in the middle of a very great recession right now.
Or is it repression?
Did I just almost say repression?
Yeah.
Oh, you caught me.
But,
anyway, we're in the middle of a very great repressive recession right now, and the right always does well in bad economic times. So this was to be expected.
Yeah. And will they have any real power? I mean, is this the indicator of things to come?
Well, the one thing that we know is that in order to form a bloc in the European Parliament, they have to have at least 7 parties.
Yeah.
And right now they only have 4.
Yeah.
And part of the problem with that, of course, is that while they all agree in many ways that the European Union should be destroyed as quickly as possible, some of the things they don't agree upon is what should be done, for example, with the Jews. Not all of them are anti-Semitic.
And let's state our bias here. We're both Jewish.
We're both Jewish.
So I think they're Meshuggah.
Yeah, really? Because I think they're a bunch of schmucks.
Okay, sure. But either way you put it, I mean, you got to say they're trying to get a 7-party coalition among these far-right parties to get at least a little more power in European Parliament. They're not even having luck doing that because they can't agree on enough of the basics. You got Wilders from Netherlands, who's sitting with Marine Le Pen from France, and Farage.
And getting some pushback because Wilders is pro-Israel, always has been staunchly pro-Israel. And of course, the people from the Front National in France, they are not.
No, not so crazy about that.
Basically, a lot of the people who support Israel here in the Netherlands are giving, and vote Wilders, are giving him a lot of trouble.
For even talking to the
It's going to be an uneasy relationship.
And, well, who knows if they'll have a block. We'll keep our eye on that. But it looks like so far not. And to wrap it up and talk more about the G7 summit coming up this week, we'll be right back after this.
Hi, I'm Nate from the What's Up Amsterdam TV show on Salto 1. Join us every Monday at 6 p.m. where we're going to talk to the city's best comedians, musicians, bloggers, restaurateurs, about all the great stuff that makes Amsterdam awesome. So join me, Nate Titer, every Monday night at 6 p.m. on Salto 1 for What's Up Amsterdam TV. What's Up Amsterdam? Anything good is right here. Ah, shit, my burgers!
That's Nate, right? I was just on the What's Up Amsterdam show with Nate Sider yesterday. God, I love him. You haven't seen that before?
I haven't seen it before, no, and I work with Nate every week because we make a show together.
That's his backyard.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I was at that party. I was sitting right behind him while he was barbecuing there. God bless him.
He's a secret. He'll just whip out a video. Well, you know, I thought you were grilling. He's brilliant. Anyway, as promised, we wanted to talk about the G7 summit coming up this week and a little bit of the, that's the ECB in the background. But the G7 summit is happening in Brussels this week. What else can I talk about?
Because the European Central Bank, that thing's in Frankfurt, man.
It is.
It's in Frankfurt. That was a poor choice.
I know. That's my bad. Anyway, we'll talk more to Jonathan. But I mean, okay, the economy, like you said, if the economy is not improving in Europe, then we have, you know, some difficult political times ahead. Do you see the European economy saving the U.S.? Is the U.S. going to save any?
You know, if you'd asked me this a week ago, I would have said, oh, the U.S. is going to pull ahead because they chose a completely different route, right? They were going to spend their way out of this recession. Yeah. It appeared to be working. Europe was cutting its way out of this recession. It appeared to not be working. Yeah. And the American economy was pulling ahead. Yeah. And then what happened? It shrank last month. Yeah. The American economy.
It did. It looks like the U.S. entered the year in recession.
That's right. So what's happening here in Europe? I think, believe it or not, this is the weirdest recession ever. Yeah. It has been completely unpredictable.
Double dip, triple dip, whatever you want to call it.
I am not going to, you know, stick my neck out on any of these things at this point because I really don't know anymore. Well, hopefully, and I think nobody knows. And frankly, anybody who says they do know is lying. Oh. You know? Nah, I was liar.
I mean, we've also said that if we're not careful, that the U.S. is turning into a banana republic. That, I mean, the corporate interests are kind of strangling the political process. Is that happening in the EU from what you've seen?
Certainly not in the same way.
No.
I mean, the worst that can be said about the EU at that point is that you're not... I mean, the United States appears to be an oligarchy in progress. Yeah. Right? And the Supreme Court has made that easier and easier by allowing more and more money to be poured into the political process. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've just made another recent decision which basically took the brakes off on almost all kinds of giving. Yeah, yeah. And so you are seeing, in fact, much more money pouring into the American political process through these oligarchs, or these rich billionaires.
At least some people care.
On both sides, right? Because the Democrats are going to have to do it too.
Of course, yeah. And you're seeing special interests happening, Sure.
While there's a tremendous amount of lobbying going on in Brussels, and there is a lot of money being thrown around, the laws here are much clearer. The brakes are on. Yeah. The disclosure laws aren't what they should be.
There's not enough transparency. That's right. Some have said, and indeed, well, this new trade partnership, the TTIP, whatever, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership. Is that going to go through? Is that just going to be a huge canard, if you will, for a duck?
That means duck.
A huge gift for big business. And but that's what they're going to be discussing this week at the G7. And also today, talking about stimulus, hopefully the European Central Bank, which we showed just a minute ago.
We showed you a picture of that.
Is, Mario Draghi, European Central Bank president, is going to decide to give some more stimulus. Maybe not buying back but making it easier to lend. So anyway, there's more to talk about, clearly, and
you'll stick around in Europe to find out if we've been properly stimulated.
Yes. Well, thank you, Jonathan Groubert, for joining us on the show. Before I go, I get to talk about my show in Amsterdam in the MC Theater on the 12th of June. It's Superburger. That's my solo show. Last one of the season to help me celebrate 20 years in Amsterdam. That's it for the United States of Europe. Thank you to Jonathan Groubert, and see you next week.
Bye.